What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is the Only Sports Podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino over there. This is the second time we're recording this podcast. We attempted to record it yesterday, but
we didn't just attempt. We did it it was so good that it was going to hurt the viewers' ears and eyes. It was pure gold, so shiny. Yeah.
No. But then it turns out it wasn't gold. It was that chocolate that's wrapped in gold foil. And then you're like, oh, I thought this was a real gold coin. And no, it wasn't. So I said to Casino, we have to record another episode to replace that shit one. And Casino said, I'm there. Let's do it. So here we are.
I think I said sure. Just sure.
But I was not hyped yesterday, Casino. I am hyped today. Super Bowl, 2 days. My team's in it. I'm going to keep pounding on the desk. That'll get us the ratings. That'll get us the views. I would like you to start calling me Skip as well. And my team is in the Super Bowl, Casino.
Skip. Calm down, Skip.
But actually, speaking of Skip, which speaks of Shannon Sharp, which speaks of LeBron James, we have some basketball news to get into before we get into the Super Bowl.
Jump into that, yes.
But before we get into that, Casino, how you doing today? You're in why don't you explain to the people the jersey you're wearing right now?
Yeah, well, this is now the third time I've ever worn this jersey because I wore it yesterday for this bit.
Maybe that's why I just made us record another episode. Just
well,
so
you know what
jersey again.
You want to know what's really funny is so I told my wife that I wore this jersey and we got to redo it today because it wasn't good, and she goes, well, that's the second time you've worn that jersey, and both times have been bad outcomes, and I was just like, God damn.
I mean, bad outcomes for you. Both times they've been great for me.
No, yesterday you sucked. But anyway, no, I'm wearing this jersey, and this is to show my support for you and the Eagles because I am rooting for them 100%. I want the Chiefs to lose. Fuck how that Cincinnati game ended. I want the Chiefs just to get destroyed. I like Andy Reid. I like Travis Kelce. I like Patrick Mahomes a lot. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks, top 3, probably favorite quarterbacks in the league right now. But, yeah, I want them to get their ass kicked.
Yeah, pretty much. But before we get into football talk and all of that, we have some basketball news that shook the world, Casino, and that was LeBron James, now the all-time leading scorer when it comes to most points scored in an NBA career. He passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
I'm back.
Yeah, you're back.
I lost connection for a second. So yeah, my rant was just going on. So thank you the internet stopped me. So LeBron James.
So LeBron James, they played against the Oklahoma City Thunder I'll tell you what, that game means basically nothing except for the LeBron James, become the all-time scorer in the game. So TNT had the little counter in the corner where they were counting down how many points he needed. It made that game infinitely more exciting. That's one of the most exciting. And, I'm not a LeBron fan. I'm not a LeBron James hater. I still think he's the second best basketball player of all time. This doesn't change that fact that he's now has the most scoring titles. I do think in basketball, football, obviously most sports, except for pretty much baseball, right? Like it comes down to how many championships you win. Like baseball is a much more individualistic, sport, stats. It's all about numbers. Football and basketball, it's like the stats and stuff are great, but how many titles have you won, right? And
right.
For LeBron James, he has 4 right now. He's been to the finals, an ungodly amount of times. I think he's been there like 14 times or something like that, and he's 4-6 in the finals. I do think that if he wins one more, he's maybe the best basketball player ever. If he wins two more, he definitely surpasses Michael. So and obviously
It's a
Michael's
fair
Michael
argument.
Jordan. So if they're tied, what is it, with 6 championships each, then it's LeBron James all day. But as of right now, I still think he is the second best basketball player of all time, which people act like that's a diss. Like, in the history of basketball, this guy's the second best to ever do it. Like, that's a compliment in my eyes. But he officially
yes,
passed.
but not in the NBA. Not in the NBA where it's all about status and look at me, big dick swinging. I mean, if you're not the best, who gives a shit? You're just another fucking player.
I mean, that's true. So
The egos in all professional sports, but NBA is pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing is, and this is why I always take offense to the people being like, well, I mean, obviously, like, he's the number one leading scorer. Like, that means he's the number one best player. Michael Jordan is 5th on that list, and he played almost 340 games less than LeBron James. So it's like, LeBron James has played so many more games than Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan's still 5th. LeBron James will probably end up around 40,000 like career points. Michael Jordan ended up with 32,292. So he'll be almost about probably around 10,000 points less. But again, it comes down to 2 championships. If LeBron James wins 1, he's in the conversation. If he wins 2, I think he is the best. But this game was crazy. The one we're talking about against the Thunder, they stopped the game in the third quarter. It didn't look like how the first 2 quarters were going. It was like, oh, it doesn't look like he's going to do it. And then all of a sudden the third quarter came up, and it seemed like every time the Lakers went to the basket, it was him. He did the record-breaking one, was a fadeaway jumper that was a great shot. And yeah, they stopped it. They celebrated it. He had all his friends, his family there. I know we either thought it was going to be at this Thunder's game or the Bucks game last night, but I'm pretty sure LeBron James in his mind
I
was like,
said that it was going to be that. I said it was going to be in the first game.
I really thought he was going to be a couple points short against the Thunder and then do it in the first quarter of the Bucks game. But when he walked into that, he was in the all-black suit. He was inviting like everyone he's ever known to that game. So I think that's the game where he was like, it doesn't matter what happens, I'm getting this record.
Well, they're going to script it to make sure it happened that way.
This isn't the NFL. We'll talk about NFL scripting. But only, like, I guess kind of the opposite of a silver lining to this game was that they lost the game. And then that kind of, but nobody will remember that because it's a random, middle of this season, regular season game against a Thunder team. But this Lakers team didn't really improve in the trade deadline. They did get rid of Russell Wilson and Russell Westbrook, I'm sorry, and his crazy expensive contract. So that was good. But the major breaking news, also congrats to LeBron James. Great, crazy achievement. I've never been a LeBron hater, so that was cool to see.
Yeah,
that game was awesome to watch.
I can't stand the guy, but well done. Trash human being, but crazy good basketball player.
But the other NBA news, and the one that will actually, that one shapes the history of the NBA. This move might shape this season and many seasons to come in the NBA, which is Kevin Durant.
You called it.
I did. I said I felt like he would either stay with the Nets or go to the Suns. I felt like him going to the Suns was the most interesting thing that could happen. And it did happen. Suns didn't really lose anybody. I thought Chris Paul would 100% be in the deal to send him to the Knicks with picks. Obviously, that's not what happened. So the Nets now have DeAndre Ayton, they have Chris Paul, they have Kevin Durant, and they have Devin Booker all on one team together with Kyrie now on the Mavericks with Luka. These two teams, it's crazy. The Nets couldn't do anything, right? I think combined together, I have it on my phone here somewhere. Combined together, I might have already deleted it. There was a ridiculous stat where Kyrie and Durant on the same team won like one playoff series together, and they played like less than 100 games. All this shit there with Kyrie and injuries and Harden and blah, blah, blah amounted to nothing, right? Just a bunch of picks, a lot of headaches, a lot of news stories that had everything to do with everything but fucking basketball. So now the Nets, traded away Harden, who is now on the Sixers, and the Sixers now might be, in that contention for one of the best teams in the East. Well, they are in contention for one of the best teams in the East with the Celtics and the Bucks. And then you have in the West, now the two best West teams appear to be the Mavericks and the Suns. So the Nets couldn't do anything with their three players.
It is a clear thing.
Yeah. And then they clean house, and all three of the All-Stars they send to other teams are now in contention to be potentially the best team in the NBA. I think this Kevin Durant trade is like one of the biggest stories maybe in NBA history, because it's one of the best NBA players of all time in his prime being traded in the middle of a season to a team with other All-Stars on it. Like, that doesn't happen all the time, right? Like speaking of LeBron, the decision was after his contract was over and it was in the offseason, right? So he could choose where he got to go. The equivalent to this would be Shaq, who got traded from, the Magic to the Lakers and then got traded from the Lakers to the Heat. So that's the equivalent of it, because he's that great of a player, obviously at a different position. But yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. Obviously, the NFL or the NBA is kind of gearing up towards their NBA All-Star game, which is next week. But once that All-Star break ends, then you're going to see all these new look teams. Even the Lakers kind of got better. If Davis and LeBron can get on the same page and, Davis stays healthy, which is a big if, like, this is going to be a great, great end to the NBA season. A lot more interesting than whatever the fuck those guys were doing on the Nets. And yeah, my Sixers are coming in. The Celtics and Bucks are duking it out. It's gonna be interesting, Casino.
Speaking of any thoughts Sixers, on? I watched the. No, continue. You're good. No.
I was gonna say, any thoughts on the NBA trades or the LeBron thing or anything like that before we move on to Super Bowl?
You pretty much tapped it. Well done. Your segment. You did good.
Yeah.
You did good.
We'll obviously go more in depth as the season progresses on stuff like this, but those were the big trades. But now, Casino, it is time. I'm pounding the desk again. It is now time to talk about the Super Bowl. Yesterday, I was not hyped. Today, I am hyped. I don't know if you can tell. I'm hyped because first season, we decide to do the Only Sports podcast, and my team is in the Super Bowl. And honestly, no matter how much I look at the different aspects of this game, I'm not saying they can't lose this game, because obviously they can. Like, it's a fifth. From all the projections we've seen, it looks like it's a 50-50 split on who thinks who's going to win and why and blah, 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 blah. But I think when you look at it on paper, I think this Eagles team, we were going to break down position by position, but when you look at position by position, besides Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, there doesn't look to be another position group that the Chiefs are better at than the Eagles.
No, there's not. Yeah, again, like we talked about a little yesterday. Let's not go in as in depth as we did yesterday because that was like 50 minutes of just rambling. But no, you're right. There's two positions, but those are two really big positions. You know, that's what carry that Chiefs team is Mahomes and Kelsey. So we got to see what's going on there. Um, we're gonna do our picks for the games on um, who's gonna be the best player or unit that needs to stand out um, coming up, and that's gonna be one of our main things. So really, though, I've been telling you all season, the Eagles, they look like the most well-balanced team in the entire NFL, and this is even before they got their offensive line or defensive line with Ndamukong Suh, and we talked about it. We forgot the other dude's name. The other dude that got picked up,
Lendell, or no, keep going. I'll look him up right now. I have it pulled up. It is Linval. Yeah. So when Sue and that guy came in, or when Sue and Joseph came in, they were like 20th in the league against the rush. And then the second they came in, all of a sudden they're like a top 3 rush defense with both those guys stuffing the run. Jordan Davis obviously came back from injury, and he is the ridiculous stat at the beginning of the season was the rush yards per attempt for the opposing team was half of what they were when Joseph was, or when Davis was on the field compared to when he was off. So when he was off the field, it was like they were allowing 10 yards per rush. When he was on the field, they were allowing less than 5. So crazy stat, like definition of like a run stuffer or a run stopper or whatever you want to say. But besides, and also we recorded yesterday, which I didn't even know that was happening last night, was the NFL Honors Award. So congrats to the big awards that were given out last night. Were the comeback player of the year was Geno Smith, which I think we would both agree with, right? Great season.
Well done. Yeah.
And what he came, usually this award is for injuries, a player coming back from injuries. But for Geno Smith, it was just him coming back from being not good. Like, I don't know what he came back from, but everybody agrees with it. He came back from
100%.
He came back from being on the Jets. Like, that's what he survived. So, comeback player of the year. Defensive rookie of the year, Sauce Gardner for the, speaking of the New York Jets. It's crazy that he was a rookie this season when you look at all, like the Pro Football Focus where they go into all the super deep analytics and stuff. He was like a top 3 cornerback in the league. Like, just
that's
almost every category.
Well, it showed because the Jets, it was the Jets. They almost made the playoffs without a quarterback all season, which is just phenomenal. Like, regardless how much we liked White when he was in there, and he looked to handle himself pretty professionally, or professional. That team got to where it was because of that defense. So 100%.
Well, and that's why the Jets are one of those big, one of those big quarterback destination, like where they're on all those lists. Where could they get Carr? Could they get Rodgers? Could they get one of the San Francisco quarterbacks, which whoever they don't stick with? Because if they get a quarterback who, instead of scoring off the field with
you're right,
all
by
the
way.
Moms,
everybody get ready for this.
Ready for this. Dun 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 dun.
Now your audio is good.
I was no idea why it. Well, I hadn't. Hopefully, it sounds good for the whole thing.
Well, it was only like 15 minutes. I could hear you, but I was texting Casino and just being like, "You're definitely talking through the computer mic, not the actual."
Well, I don't know why.
And now
I have no idea why I did not stay connected to my. This is the first time that it's ever disconnected. My Blue Snowball sponsor. If you want to sponsor, my Blue Snowball. The first time it's ever disconnected, but now I'm reconnected to it. Good call.
Yeah. I could tell, and because I was like, wow, Casino's tones aren't as sultry as they usually are. And I was like, it's not because Casino lost Solch. He's got it back now. It's so sultry. But yeah, so the Jets also got offensive rookie of the year, which was Garrett Wilson, which from all the online talk of the NFL honors, there's two categories where people are like, I don't know about that one. This seems to be the main one, which is Garrett Wilson as offensive rookie of the year. There was talk for Kenneth Walker for the Seahawks, that running back, Chris Olave, or however the fuck you say his name, the wide receiver for the Saints. I'm fine with this because a wide receiver for the Jets having as good of a season as he did with the quarterback play he had to endure, like that's, I mean, the Saints didn't have it much better, but they definitely had it better than the Jets. Like,
100% they did. Like, that's what I was saying. Is like the Jets, the only reason they got what they got was, for the most part, is because of that defense. 90% of that team's success this year was the defense.
Yeah, and I mean Garrett Wilson with that's abysmal quarterback play had 83 receptions, 1,100 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Like, that's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, you having to try to go multiple quarterbacks. He had to go through multiple quarterbacks that are still not that good. So that is a feat amongst itself right there.
If you had to put money on it, would you say Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, or Aaron Rodgers ends up on this Jets team? Or fourth option, none of the above?
Jimmy Garoppolo.
That's where I'm leaning too. I feel like he just fits, like he kind of has that like swagger that I think would work in New York.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Plus,
like,
don't you think he would want to go and beat the shit out of the Patriots?
Oh, that's a nice wrinkle. Yeah, that's an added wrinkle.
This patch is burning me.
I do not think that. What is it? I don't think Aaron Rodgers will go to the Jets, only because
he's going to
Aaron
Vegas.
Rodgers is petty, and that is the first place after the Packers that Brett Favre went. So I don't think he will follow in his footsteps.
Go to Vegas or nothing.
Also, side note, I saw this after we recorded the podcast yesterday. Did you see that Brett Favre is suing Shannon Sharp and Pat McAfee for slander and like basically calling Brett Favre an asshole when they did an interview talking about the whole him stealing money kind of thing?
Oh, yeah, like, stealing money from the homeless and putting it towards a volleyball team.
Well, apparently now we have to say allegedly. So allegedly, because they didn't say allegedly once in that interview, which is how he can sue them, which is fucking crazy. Like, nobody has fallen.
Guess what? I'm going to pull this old thing out of my hat. Sue me. I'm worth nothing.
But there has never been a bigger fall from grace for like beloved NFL quarterback to like where Favre is now. Is there any quarterback who was beloved as Favre and then fucked it up as Royal? Maybe Deshaun Watson? Like maybe those are the two?
True.
Yeah, like I can't think of anybody else.
There's one quarterback that actually got, better was our motherfucker Zach Wilson.
Yeah,
now he's just most popular kid in school.
Let's see. The next one was defensive player of the year went to Nick Bosa, who, rightfully so. That was deserved. I mean, you're about to get a mini rant about the 49ers and Eagles, but that's not going to happen right now.
You texted me when these came out and you said we pretty much got that nailed. We almost nailed that whole nominee thing and everything. So when it came to the Willies.
Nick, shout out to the Willies. Clearly inspired the NFL honors. But Nick Bosa got 46 votes. Hassan Reddick got 2. I really think I don't like how these season awards don't factor in the playoffs, because in the playoffs, isn't it more impressive when you do what you've been doing all season, but more and better against better competition? That just always
See,
seemed weird to me.
I understand they're trying to make it fair for every team to compete, not just the playoff teams. But you should get rewarded for making the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't, and plus, if you're that good of a player, your team should benefit from it somehow. Like, I don't, because when you factor in the regular season and the playoffs, Hassan Reddick had one full more sack. He had 19 and a half. Nick Bosa had 18 and a half. Hassan Reddick had 30 QB hits. Bosa had 49. But here's where the real disparity comes down, right? Forced fumbles, Reddick had 6, and he recovered 4 of them. Bosa had 2 forced fumbles and recovered 1 of them. So when you're talking about a defensive player, one full more sack and then 4 more forced fumbles, like that seems like important. I don't know.
Oh yeah, because you're
as
changing
a defensive end.
100% getting turnovers. I mean, yes, knocking the quarterback down, cool, whatever, but they could still get the first down on the next play. But if you're ripping the ball out of somebody's hand, they don't get the opportunity to get that next first down.
Yeah. So my only issue
Turnovers.
with that,
It's all about turnovers.
it's fine that Bosa won, right? Like everybody was basically predicting that he rightfully so was going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I do feel like it's weird that he got 46 and Hassan Reddick only got 2. I thought that gap would be much closer, especially with how much Bosa was dominated in the Eagles 49ers game and how much Hassan Reddick dominated that game. Like both players were on the field and one stepped up, big time, changed that entire game, and one was kind of put in the
Do you want to know
room with Aaron
my
Rodgers.
favorite thing? So Hassan Reddick got 2. I can never say his name right. Williams, Q Williams. How do you
From
say
the
it?
Jets got 1, and Chris
got
Jones
1.
from the
Jones
Chiefs got 1.
But the number 1 defensive player of the year in everybody's hearts, the Micah Parsons, did not get a single first place vote.
What? Which is crazy because, he was overhyped the entire season and we kept saying that. But, shout out to him for still being mentioned in tweets where he gets or still mentioned in a tweet in a competition where he got 0 votes. But next up, Offensive Player of the Year was Justin Jefferson. I don't think we have any issue with that, right? Like
No.
He put on a clinic all year, except against the Eagles where he was shut down, but I'm just throwing that in there. However, the Coach of the Year, I feel like, is where there's also debate, much like with Rookie of the Year, because Coach of the Year is Brian Daboll, which is great. Obviously, everybody was picking the Jets before the season to finish as a top 5 pick in the draft, and then they ended up getting to the not to the Super Bowl, to the playoffs. But my issue with this, Casino, is the person I think should have been Coach of the Year is obviously the Eagles head coach, right? So Brian Daboll against the Eagles head coach is 0-3, and he got blown out in every single game. So to me, that just seems like, I mean, again, it's weird that these votes were also unanimous and it wasn't like a closer contabulation of the votes, but
What a word.
congrats to Brian Daboll.
Is that your big word for the day?
What?
I can't say it. Like contabulable.
I don't remember what contabulation. I don't know.
There it is.
I've been using word of the day, toilet paper. So there you go. Just learned it today.
Yeah, that one.
Contabulation. That's probably not even a real word. Who cares? It was on the toilet paper. Next up, Casino, and what will lead us into our official Super Bowl talk is the most valuable player of the league is, of course, Patrick Mahomes for the second time in his 6 years in the league. If we're including his rookie year where he played 1 game, he has 5 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pros, 2 first, 1 second, 1 Offensive Player of the Year, 2 MVPs, 5 AFC championship games, 3 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl championship, 1 Super Bowl MVP. Obviously, he is 1-1 at the moment in the Super Bowl because he plays on Sunday. If he retired tomorrow, which I hope he does, so he doesn't play in the Super Bowl. But if he retired tomorrow, Casino, do you think that resume would be enough to put him in the Hall of Fame? Is he a Hall of Fame quarterback already?
Yeah.
I think so too. Like hosting the AFC Championship game 5 years in a row. Like,
I mean, if there's consideration for Tony Romo to be in the goddamn Hall of Fame,
no,
people have talked about it, and it being a Cowboy, that's possibly a possibility. But
yeah,
no.
Also, speaking of, shout out to all the people who got announced for the next year's class of the NFL Hall of Fame. I watched that whole video. Darrell Revis for Revis Island.
He deserves.
He got but the one that fucking made me actually tear up or whatever, his reaction to it was Zach Thomas, the linebacker for the Dolphins. When he got in, they like surprised him in his house and he was walking up the stairs and he just starts bawling his eyes out or whatever, and his whole family's there. Dude, that one fucking, I'm not even a Dolphins fan. I don't even really remember watching Zach Thomas play, but man, that his reaction to it, his whole family being there.
Send me that link. Send me that link. I'll watch it off air so I can cry off air.
Yeah, it was. I believe it was Jimmy Johnson who like was there, in his Hall of Fame jacket, and they both just started crying. And yeah, it was a nice moment. Like, I like those videos where when the NFL does this, where they like surprise the person with a Hall of Fame, telling them they're going to the Hall of Fame, and the other guys are crying and their family's there. It's a cool moment. And all the guys who got in, also Joe Thomas, the offensive tackle from the Cleveland Browns, all of them deserving. I literally have no, how the fuck did this guy get in? Like, all of them were at the peaks at their position at one point. So congrats to them. But Casino, when it comes to, we'll segue into our Super Bowl talk right now, the last 9 players to win MVP and play in the Super Bowl, guess what their record is? Last 9 games.
2-7.
They are 0-9. So the last 9 MVPs to play in that Super Bowl, that same season they win MVP, are 0-9. So fingers crossed, I guess. I mean, hopefully
crossed.
That's 0-10.
But apparently,
Sunday night.
to some quarterbacks, winning MVP is more important than winning a Super Bowl.
So when we get into weird stats like that, I just want to read these off, Casino. The winner of the coin toss has lost the last 8 Super Bowls, and then there was another. No, I believe those were the 2 things that. Oh, it was
I will
the
say
teams.
Go for it. Sorry.
It was the teams that wear white, or the away team has won, I think, the last 7 Super Bowls, I want to say. So it comes. I think that was the last one to not win it, if I believe. So
that's why that was one of the reasons
5?
we were very confident, my family and I, that the Patriots were going to win. And it was like, oh, they're wearing white. Oh, we've got this.
Yeah. So now what I'm saying is I'm glad Patrick Mahomes won the MVP. It was obviously deserved. I think for most of the season, it was Hurts's award to lose, and then he did lose it by missing 2 games. So Patrick Mahomes, clear number 1 choice. I am also glad he won the MVP because they were 0-9 in the Super Bowl. I'm obviously an Eagles fan. And also, if they lose, or no, I want them to win the coin toss, right? The winner of the coin toss. Yes. So I want him to also win the coin toss. So then that'll be 2, weird random things against him. But before we dive into all this, Casino, what do you think has been the big story for the past 2 weeks involving these 2 teams going into the Super Bowl? What has been the Super Bowl, narrative they try to build around it.
The two Kelsey brothers.
Yes, this has turned. I really thought there would be more when it came to Andy Reid firing Nick Sirianni and Andy Reid working. Sirianni used to be with the Chiefs. Andy Reid used to be with the Eagles. I thought there would be more there, but apparently that is not as juicy as two brothers playing against each other.
Yeah, two brothers. I mean, but because who wants to talk about coaches and all that? They want to see moms making cookies for her two boys.
Yeah, and they also now have they also started a I don't know
My
if it's
wife
a
watched
podcast because we're obvious.
No, it's just them. They're just videoing them talking to their mom. That's all.
Yeah. So they started a radio program.
My wife watched it last night. My wife will watch that, but she won't watch this.
Wow. Well, she probably doesn't know what a podcast is, right? Because that's a radio broadcast. This is a podcast. So you probably have to first explain to her what a podcast is, blah, 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 blah. And then she'll be like, wait a second, there's no sports podcast. There's all these other sports. There's all these other podcasts not about sports. And then you have to be like, honey, we're the only one. Sports, blah, blah, blah. But I will say, they started a radio show this season. We started a podcast this season. They obviously play for the Eagles and Chiefs, and they're in the Super Bowl. I'm an Eagles fan, and the Eagles are in the Super Bowl. Coincidence? I don't know. If you were also a Chiefs fan and I was an Eagles fan, and we started this podcast at the start of this season, we would never be able to stop, right? Like that. No. The chances of that happening would be fucking crazy. If we would have started this in 2017, then it would have happened, Casino. And then that would have been real interesting. But our teams are 1-1 against each other in the Super Bowl. So we're good.
Whatever the next one happens, when 20 years from now, whatever it may be. Oh man. When we are famous for this podcast, when we are legit famous and not sued, I'm coming for you.
I was telling you yesterday on the podcast, I've never rewatched the 2004 Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And you've never watched
the 2017 one, right? No, I've never rewatched it, no.
And we agreed that we would do a live rewatch on the podcast where I watch for the first time since it aired the 2004 Super Bowl. You watch for the first time since it aired the 2017 Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And we'll just watch them back to back.
What we're going to do for that is we're just going to have to tell the wives that we got lost on a camping trip or something.
Yes. And then they'll be like, oh, they're using that old excuse again. And it'll be like, no, not for that. This time we're watching the Super Bowl. We swear. And then they're like, oh my God, they're using that excuse again. So we'll have to come up with a new excuse. But we will do that for the podcast, probably over the summer where we have fucking nothing to talk about. And we'll just randomly pull that out of our asses. But yeah, that should be fun. However, for this Super Bowl that's airing this Sunday, we will be watching it together. Is this the first Super Bowl we will ever watch together? I think it is.
Yes, because you were not invited to my brother's house. Again, not my fault. That was not my call.
That's also not true. I was invited. You did invite me. You just said I wasn't allowed to cheer when good things happen to the Eagles because it was your brother's house. So you did invite me.
I was
you
protecting
just gave me unrealistic rules that I would have never followed. But you know what?
You go. You made a choice. You made a choice.
That's true. And however, all of that led to me discovering the Eagles bar, which I now try to watch every Eagles game at, which is where we are going to watch the Super Bowl. So it came full circle. So good job, Casino. In retrospect, past you made a great decision. And past me made a great decision. So kudos to both of us. 2017, what a magical year. And 2023 looks to be as magical if the Eagles can win this game. Let's talk about in our Super Bowl super megasode. Do you have you listened to any of the interviews with any of the players?
Not too many. During their media week, no, not really.
So I've been watching everything involving the Eagles. Yesterday, actually, right when we got off the podcast, there was a live. I opened up YouTube and there was a live broadcast of Sirianni and Jalen Hurts being interviewed that I actually watched like right from the beginning. Dude, Jalen Hurts, he should just write a book of quotes because of how good he is at just saying badass things. This is what he said yesterday.
I did like this one. I saw it and I tried to send it to you like 20 minutes before we started this podcast. I love it. Go for it.
Oh,
I did
saw
watch
it
this
live
one.
when he was saying it, and I was like, Jesus
I got
Christ, this
chills.
guy. So when asked a question looking back on the criticism before the year, he said, and I quote, "I'd like to ask them that question. There's so many things that motivate me and make me want to be the best. But I had a purpose before everybody had an opinion. It's not about anybody else." He paused. I know y'all like that one. Yes,
And
I
smiled.
do.
Yeah,
That is
and smiled. That was
fucking
great.
if he just pulled that out of his ass randomly, like, dear God, that is such a good fucking line. I had a purpose before everybody had.
Here's the thing: is I believe him.
So do I. Like, he's done nothing to disprove any of the things he's ever said. So he seems like one of those guys who does just like answer a question like that. Like, that is such a goddamn good question. Of course, it all throughout the season, he just says banger after banger of like motivational quotes that you can make bumper stickers of and hang on the walls and stuff. And goddamn, that might be the best one. That is so
Are
good.
you gonna get that tattooed across your chest?
Maybe. I mean, right on my heart, just like right over here. That's a fucking banger of a line right there. Now, the thing that has been most interesting, Casino, about this Super Bowl has been neither of the teams have really talked shit about each other because I feel like both teams, first off, there's no reason for the teams to hate each other. There's no like history or, they've never been combative. And Mahomes and Jalen Hurts both seem like super likable guys
Yeah,
that I don't
they
think he hates
each other.
yeah. And when they were on stage together, they just wouldn't stop talking about how great the other one was. And it was nice to
Yeah.
see that.
I
Obviously,
mean, the amount of Super Bowls they've watched in the mountains together. I mean, come on.
yeah. Also, first time ever in NFL history, two black quarterbacks have played against each other in the Super Bowl, which I would have thought would have happened before. I know there's been black quarterbacks who have played in the Super Bowl, but for this to be the first one where two black quarterbacks have played against each other, that's a cool thing, especially where it's these two guys who are
It's historic.
there's really
is what
nothing
it
to
is.
hate.
Yeah, it's historic. It's an incredible moment for them.
Yeah. So
yeah, they're gonna those two are gonna absolutely crush, and I'm excited to watch this game because we know we're gonna get the best from both of these two players, and I just can't wait to see it.
Well, speaking of the best, they are. Oh, did I send? Oh, no, I sent that to you. So it is, if you can give me 1 second here where I can pull up that crazy stat.
Mississippi.
It is. Oh, the Chiefs this year, 16-3 record, 546 points scored. The Eagles, 16-3 record, 546 points scored. They have the same exact record, the same amount of points scored this season, which is one of those things where, like, how the fuck does that even happen? Also, both have 6 All-Pros on their team, including a Kelsey. So, obviously, Travis Kelsey for the Chiefs, Jason Kelsey for the Eagles. Both the
and if you don't know, Travis plays tight end, and then oh my gosh,
Kelsey
you just said his name.
Safety. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Blake, you just said his first name.
Travis Kelsey.
No, his brother.
Jason Kelsey.
Jason. Oh my gosh, you literally said it, and I went to go say it, and there was nothing there. I was like, wow.
So yes, both teams. Exact number of points scored, exact record. Both have 6 All-Pros. One is the AFC's number 1 seed. One is the NFC's number 1 seed. Like, just that's a stat where it's just like, that's fucking incredible. That is crazy but obviously, like you said, these were clearly the best teams in the NFC, AFC, and now they're playing in the Super Bowl.
So I think like where you're kind of driving, so you say that though, but you have the Chiefs who are the number 1 offense versus the number 1 defense in the league,
Yes.
in the Eagles overall, and then you have the number 2 offense in the Eagles versus I believe it was the 11th. Yeah. So 11th defense. So like they're pretty much identical outside of that one thing where the defense is 11th and 1st.
Yeah. Which I think, like, how can you not look at that and be like, that's going to be the main difference, right? Because obviously Patrick Mahomes is a wizard who can do whatever he wants to do on the field, but we've seen him in Super Bowls struggle against a defense that has a high pass rush and
Put
is
pressure
just
on him
blitzing nonstop. Yeah, just trying to.
So I guess now with that, are we good with that, or did you want to talk more about the teams not saying much about each other?
Well, in terms of that, these are actually things I found yesterday that I did not share with you. In the narrative of the Eagles had an easy schedule, right? That's what we've heard all season. In NFL history, best records in NFL history versus winning teams, there is the 1969 Vikings who had a 9-1 record. The 2007 Patriots who had a 9-1 record. Only other team in NFL history with a 9-1 record, which is the most versus teams with a winning record you play in a season, the 2022 Philadelphia Eagles. So I've said it all year. When they play the best teams on their schedule, they had the best games, right? They played the Titans, who at that time had only they were like the number 1 seed in the AFC or something like that, and they blew them out of the water. Then they played the Cowboys and the Giants, both annihilated them. It was, I don't know where this narrative came for. Also, in terms of throughout the season, the Eagles' opponents' combined win-loss record was 134, 149, and 5. The Chiefs' opponents' combined win-loss records were 129, 156, and 2. So the Chiefs actually played easier opponents than the Eagles have all season. And that's just a narrative that is never talked about. Like we've discussed on this podcast, it's one of those things where people just say things and then you're just like, is that not true? Is that true? And then you Google it and it's just like, that's not true. So it's like, where the fuck are you just pulling this random shit out of your ass? Like, I don't know. But Eagles were 10-2 versus teams at or over 500, who were tied with the Giants with just 3 wins for most games versus a team at or over 500. However, the only team with double-digit wins in the NFL versus those teams were the Eagles at 10-2, and then closest to them were the Giants, Jaguars, and then the Chiefs, who had 9. So just, crazy stats there. Now, Casino, we may continue.
Well, as we were talking about, you were saying about Patrick Mahomes being really good against defenses, but he can struggle with his mobility, not only because he's got a little bit of an injury in his leg right now, so the high ankle sprain, but going against a good pass rushing team, which the Eagles are, in my opinion, the best pass rushing team. You can get hit from every which direction, down the middle, from the sides. They have 5 players that could just go absolutely ham on you. If I remember correctly, they have 3 over 10 sacks. Like 4 over 10 sacks. That's absolutely astonishing. So that's something that I feel like Mahomes is still probably going to be able to get it out and do Mahomes magic like he has been his entire career so far. But the pressure will be on, figuratively and literally. Boom.
Well, also, with what you're saying in terms of sacks. The 1984 Chicago Bears, which obviously everybody remembers as the 15-1, maybe best defense in NFL history, who only one loss came against Dan Marino and the Dolphins on Monday Night Football, I believe. The Chicago Bears have the most sacks by a team in a season with 72 sacks in 1984. The closest to them was the 1989 Minnesota Vikings, who had 71 sacks. The next closest team at third is this 2022 Philadelphia Eagles class. Now, you made a great point yesterday where you reminded me that they did play one extra game. So if you do take out one extra game where, let's say, they had their best sack performance of the year at 5, right? That would still put them at 65 sacks, which would give them the most since the 2000 New Orleans Saints, who had 66. So
right. What I also brought up, to cut you off because you talk too much, is what the fans say.
Everybody says that. You sound like my wife.
Yeah, I knew I liked her. But something else that I brought up that you didn't touch on, I like pointing here. My fingers like
really, I do like pointing. I don't like when people point in public, but like at me, but on the podcast, it just works, right?
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, they may have played another game, more games than the previous seasons. However, the rules on roughing the passer are so different now. I'm not sure. I didn't watch every Eagles game, but those that could have been sacks are getting called as roughing the passers. So not just for the Eagles, but for all teams, those numbers are skewed. The game changes. So it's still a feat. It's hard to compare to teams in the past when things have changed. So take it for what it is right now. That's still just an astonishing number. Like I don't trying to pull. I like the stats. I like the knowledge that you brought on the show today. On the episode,
I told you I was hyped.
But take it for what it is. You throw all that other way. It's still insane what they did this season.
Yeah,
and they're still probably going to do. They're probably. I think. I don't know what the fun prop bets are, but I'm sure there's going to sacks total for the game. I would probably say is over or under 5, and I would probably take the over for those two teams.
Well, speaking of 5, if you combine the postseason and the regular season for sacks in one season, if they do get 5, they will have the most sacks in a season by a team in NFL history. So, and that segues us to this, Casino. You talk about Patrick Mahomes' high ankle sprain. Jalen Hurts is also dealing with a shoulder injury he's had for, at this point, I believe it's been a month, maybe longer. Who would you be more worried about in this game? Jalen Hurts' shoulder injury or Patrick Mahomes' high ankle sprain?
Patrick Mahomes' high ankle sprain. Reason being is you saw it though in the NFC Championship game. Well, let me speak here. Let me talk. You had your turn. Let me talk. In the NFC Championship game with the Eagles and the Niners, you saw that Hurts was having trouble getting some of the over-the-top throws all the way out there. They were a little underthrown. There was the 1-2 Brown, which he would normally never miss. He missed. So that is concerning, but hopefully he's had a little time off. They've worked on it a little bit, but you can still win games. I've said it before. You win a football game 5 yards at a time, slice and dice. I watched Brady do it for his entire career. So I think Mahomes has a more difficult road to get through because half of his game, I wouldn't say half, but I would say about 30% of his game is about his mobility in the pocket to get away from sacks, to move around, to avoid stuff. And even with this amazing defense with the sack, if he was fully healthy, they would have their work cut out for him because Mahomes is the best in the game at avoiding the pressure and still making an insane play. He can do it. He's got a rocket of an arm, so he doesn't really need to put a lot of pressure off of his foot to get that throw out. But you still have to do it some. But I think he's going to have trouble getting away from the pressure when it's coming from both sides and maybe even down the middle.
Yep.
Coming in every direction, that trying to get out of the way, he's not going to be as quick as he has been, because you saw it in the championship game, the AFC championship game against the Bengals. Now I'm talking about it. Just chill.
I was just setting you up, homie. Setting you up.
So he was able to get away from the pressure a few times, but you see him hobbling as he's doing it. He's not as quick. He's not doing the triple double back to try to find something. So I think it's going to hurt Mahomes a little bit more than it would hurt Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
That is my prediction on that. What is your take?
Well, I agree with you that probably the three best quarterbacks in terms of being mobile just behind the line of scrimmage, within the pocket and not just taking off to run. The three best quarterbacks I've ever seen do it is one, Tom Brady, right? He was always good at just moving behind his line, avoiding pressure, waiting for somebody to get open. Second would be Peyton Manning, right? Because you would always see him doing like the happy feet where he was just looked like he was dancing back there. The third would be Patrick Mahomes, who's by far the most athletic of the three and does it way different than those other two, which is he will constantly be running behind the line of scrimmage, waiting for the play to break down so he can just, like you talk about the rocket arm, so he can just launch it to a guy 30 yards down the field where you're like, how the fuck did he complete that pass?
Right.
So I do think that in this game, the main issue for Patrick Mahomes is going to be, you can be mobile, but how mobile are you going to be able to have to be on a, flat tire in terms of your high ankle sprain that we did see, like you said, in the Bengals game.
That's a good comparison. I like that.
What, a flat tire?
Yeah.
But when
sorry to interrupt you. That was it was sexy. It was
okay.
a good one. It was seamless. And then seamless. I ruined the seamless because I stopped it, but
you know whatever. What? I'll always take praise from a fan, when I'm talking about stuff. So thank you,
God
Casino.
damn it.
But no. But when it comes to this game, however, with the mobility, how long is Patrick Mahomes really going to have behind the line of scrimmage before, that pressure either disrupts a throw or he takes a sack, or we talked about this multiple times before. He's the second leading rusher on this team. So if Pacheco is not going to be able to run the ball because the Eagles look to be a pretty stout run D, how mobile is this Eagles D going to allow him to be? And then how much of his game breaks down once he's not able to rush? So as far as on the other end, what would be your concerns about a Jalen Hurts shoulder injury if he still, has some issues with it in the game?
It takes away one of the best parts of their game, which is the long ball. They are the best long ball throwing team in the league. And that would hurt them. So that's going to just take away some of their playbook. But again, like I said, they're the most well-balanced team of this season, in my opinion, that they'll figure it out the other ways. But if he hasn't worked it out enough to where he can't get those long balls, maybe do them earlier in the game. And as it goes later in the game, you can't get the arm torque to get it over the top, then you can't get it over the top. But yeah, he should. That's my concern, is that takes away one of their biggest weapons for their offense is the over the top ball.
Yeah. So this Eagles offense is Jalen Hurts is the best downfield passer this year on 20-plus yard pass plays. The Chiefs are, I believe, the worst team in covering 20-plus yard passes. So that's another factor where you talk about the number one defense against the number one offense, and then you talk about number two offense against number 11 defense. Well, if the defense is 11th in overall defense, but they're the worst in one of the things you do the best, I don't see how that isn't, a giant advantage that you're going to try to take advantage of in the actual game itself. But the only thing hindering that is if Jalen Hurts' shoulder is still not up to par. Apparently, there are reports coming out that it's not a serious enough injury where it's going to require surgery, but it still obviously is bothering him. To what extent, we're going to have to wait till the actual game starts to see it. And speaking of the game, Casino, I think it's the perfect time to go into our X factors. So we'll start on your side of the screen. Who is going to be your X factor for the Chiefs?
Offense or defense, my friend?
Let's start with defense.
Defense, shit.
Or do you want to start offense?
Let's start with offense because I was going to pull up the defense names. Offense, I said it last game for picks for the Chiefs. It has to be their run game. It has to be their run game because you know what you're going to get out of Kelsey. He's going to be great. He's going to be one of their biggest guys. So I'm taking that away. So the X factor is you need to get a run game going because you need to get some sort of run game going. But you were talking about Pacheco that he needs to make he's not going to get taken down by those edge rushers or Ndamukong Suh down the middle. That he really needs to show up. Him, McKinnon, I forget the other guy's name, but 100% they need to have a good game. They need to help Patrick Mahomes, especially so Mahomes isn't going to be scrambling as much. He can be confident with passing that ball off, tucking it under his running back and letting them do some work. So that's who are my X factors for the game. For the offense is going to be the whole rushing. If you want me to isolate, I would probably say I need Pacheco to kick ass. He needs to have a good game. He is their leading rusher because their second leading rusher is Mahomes. So you need Pacheco to actually have a good game.
Yeah, and especially like we talked about it, if he has a great game and it's going to make the Eagles defense much unlike what they had to do last week against the 49ers, where they were just like, okay, well, 49ers are out of quarterback, so let's just commit to the run every single snap, and then that's why they had success. If Pacheco has good rushing early, that's going to open up the passing game because now it's not let's just not let Pacheco beat us. Let's let Patrick Mahomes. Well, if Pacheco's beating you and then Mahomes is now getting you on play action or he's having time to pass, that's going to blow this game wide open where all of a sudden this Chiefs offense is not one-dimensional. They don't have to rely on Patrick Mahomes' arm or in this case legs. And yeah, that's going to be an issue. My X factor for the Chiefs offense is I am actually picking Kadarius Toney. And I changed this up from who I was picking in yesterday's episode, and here's why, Casino. So in the playoffs, in the two games the Chiefs have played, they've played the Jaguars and the Bengals. In those two games, Travis Kelce was targeted 25 times, right? Not catches, just targeted. He caught 21 of those targets, which is fucking insane. How the fuck is he always open that much? But the second closest target was Marquez Valdez-Scantling, right? And he had only 10 targets to the insane Travis Kelce 25 targets. But the third option on that list was Kadarius Toney, who had 9 receptions. So if you're the Eagles, if you're Jonathan Gannon and you're looking at the Chiefs, you're saying, okay, the first option is going to be Kelce. The second option is going to be Scantling. And then the third option is going to be Pacheco. Fourth option is going to be trying to contain Patrick Mahomes, right? Like keep him in the pocket, keep him there.
You're going deep with this.
And that means you're going to be worried about all those things. And that leaves Tony, who is the wide receiver from the Giants they traded for. Apparently, he's their fastest wide receiver. So you're going to be, I think in this game, you have to put a cornerback on Travis Kelce, right? He would be the best wide receiver if he switched to wide receiver on almost every team in the league, right? So that means your first best cornerback, your second best quarterback, so in this case, it would be Slay and Bradbury, are taking care of those two options, which means Avonte Maddox in the slot would have to take care of Tony. And there has been question marks all week. Is Avonte Maddox okay? I believe he's still on the injury report as listed as questionable. He is
No,
also
he's off
dealing
now.
with,
I just checked it. I was gonna comment on that. So yeah,
then
we're good.
as of yesterday, when we looked, he was still on it, right? He was questionable for, I believe it was an ankle injury.
Well, now it's Friday. They need to have stuff out. They need to say who's. We need there was an update.
That's actually the first I'm hearing of that. So that's good. But still, Avonte Maddox, as of 1 day ago, was still listed as injured. Now he is going to have to play in the slot against one of the fastest wide receivers that he's probably seen all year against Tony. And if he can shut it down, I think they win. But if Tony or Valdez Scantling go off, and then you also have Travis Kelce catching his usual 10 receptions a game, like that's going to be hard to overcome. I think the Eagles can win in a shootout against the Chiefs, but I don't think it's ideal. I don't think you want to be in a shootout with the reigning MVP and the best.
I don't think that's going to happen because
in the league.
I think Mahomes is going to have trouble getting rid of the ball quick enough.
Yeah, I think when you look at this game, it bears very similar comparisons to the Tampa Bay game that the Chiefs lost, where I really do think they were starting I believe like third string rookie left tackle, and that's basically where all the pressure came from. I believe you can kind of plug and play that scenario with Mahomes on a bum leg, right? I think those two things are very similar in how this game is going to, be approached by Jonathan Gannon and this defensive front, which is he's not going to be as mobile, so we can hit him. But Casino, who is your defensive Chiefs?
And I'm going to say this with confidence because yesterday you did not believe me. I'm going with Snead. Snead, because he's playing and he's not a rookie. Sorry, just throwing it out there. We had a whole thing. You don't need to know about it. But anyway, I'm going with Snead. So he has been cleared to play. I haven't seen anything. As you looked up yesterday, he was knocked out with a head injury in the
Bengals
conference
game.
Yeah, in the conference final game. So I think he's gonna have to have a good game. He's one of their best cornerbacks. He's gonna have to be able to stop that long ball because if Hurts is healthy and he is throwing bombs to Smith or Brown, you gotta have your head on a swivel. You got to be able to know what you're doing. He's got to run that defense back there. So he's got some good numbers, but not the greatest numbers, which is crazy because there's not too many defensive players for the Chiefs that are like super good on that secondary. Like Snead, he has 75 total tackles, which is tied for 32nd in the league. Forced fumbles, he's tied for 6 with 3. Interceptions, tied at 28th with 3. So he's got a lot. He's done a lot, but he needs to do a little bit more, especially show up in this game in a big way. He needs to lock down one of those players, and I think he needs to have a big game for him. He needs to be locked down defense. So then the Eagles are going to have to worry more about their running game and more of a slice and dice kind of thing.
Yeah. So what Casino was mentioning before, we got in this long, I don't even know what it was, just sidetrack yesterday trying to find out if the Chiefs were starting rookie corners in the Super Bowl, which I'd heard all week. Apparently they are not.
I said no, but I don't, he doesn't believe me because I don't run the show. He does. I don't know why it says the only sports podcast with Casino and Will. It should be with Will, and that's it.
No, because it's not.
Thank you.
The only reason it says with Will and Casino is because it's in alphabetical order.
With Casino and Will. I like that.
Yeah. If it said with Will and Casino, it would just be and it would just look weird. But why I said that was because rookie corners Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams both had interceptions against the Bengals, and they were both in the game because, like Casino said, Snead was knocked out of the game with head injury. So if the Chiefs are going to be playing, because they're going to have to be playing 3 cornerbacks pretty much all game, right? Because the Eagles have A.J. Brown, they have Devontae Smith, and then they have Quez Watkins. So that is going to be an interesting matchup to see, how great wide receivers like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith attack this Chiefs secondary. But I am actually going a different route with this. And instead of picking anybody in the secondary, I am picking linebacker Nick Bolton. And I think he will be the most important player on this defense, strictly based on how the Eagles' game plan, I feel like, will be in this game, which is when it comes down to this Eagles offense is RPO game, right? The run pass option, which we've seen the Eagles dominate with pretty much this entire season. But when it comes to how I think they're going to approach this game, it's going to be 3 things, right? It's going to be trying to run with Sanders, Gainwell, Boston Scott, that 3-headed monster that can easily put up 200 yards against a Chiefs rushing defense that I don't think is really, anything to worry about compared to other teams they played, right? Considering how good the 49ers were against the run, and they still ran for 150 yards on them. But if that's not working, then you're going to have Jalen Hurts' legs, and the runs with the running backs and the quarterback are all going to be right up the middle or right on the side of the line, right? Which means Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in the entire NFL, which is, I read this yesterday, where in terms of their offensive player rankings across the offensive line, I think I already deleted it. I knew I sent it to you though, Casino.
You did.
Stalling. Where is it? If I could just pull it up. It's so far. Oh, there it is. So across the offensive line with the Eagles, Jordan Mailata, the left tackle, is 5th. Landon Dickerson, the left guard, is 6th. Jason Kelsey is 2nd for centers. Siamalu is 7th among right guards, and Lane Johnson is 2nd among right tackles. Now, that's all against 31 other teams. So out of 31, the lowest ranked one is 7th. Which means this is, I feel, by far one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I don't think there's any disputing that. So that means the only person you really have to worry about on that Chiefs defense throughout the entire season has been the defensive tackle, Chris Jones, right? So if he's taken care of on the line, that means the run game is going to be won or lost on that second level of the defense, which is right where Nick Bolton rests. Right? He's their best linebacker. He's one of their best defensive players all year. He has 180 tackles this season, which is fucking insane. This regular season, he had 180 total tackles, 108 solo, 72 assists, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, which what that tells me is they don't put him in coverage. They don't send him on blitzes. That means they put him dead center in the middle of the field and say, stop the run game, right? So he's going to, I feel, make or break this Philadelphia offense, which is he's going to make sure either he's going to have to control Jalen Hurts or he's going to have to stop that 3-headed monster it comes to rushing the ball. Now, Casino, who is your Philadelphia Eagles? Are you starting offense or defense?
Let's go defense.
Ooh.
Yeah. Quite simple. It's whoever's covering, whoever they put to cover Travis Kelce. Just whoever it is.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, you're saying you mentioned you got to put your best corner on him. Doesn't matter. Like he's their best wide receiver in a sense. He's their best option to throw the football to. So whether it's Maddox, whether it's Bradbury or Slay, somebody is going to have to step up in a big way and shut him down. And if it's not work, if one of them's not going to be able to do it, you got to throw another person on it. Because if you're going to be putting a linebacker every now and then to try to cover Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes is going to lick his chops and be like, "Thank you for giving me an out. I'm tossing it to him. Thank you." So I think that's a big spot, big role in this game. Pretty much, you stop Kelsey, you stop them from scoring points.
Yeah. And also, well, not even just stopping him, like limiting how many catches he gets.
Oh,
I mean,
100%. If he could go for it.
Less than what, 7? That's a win? Like
I would say less than if you get him less than 10, because he's been breaking 10 in almost every game. You get him less than 10. That probably saves you at least a field goal.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's a good point. For me, I am picking Josh Sweat on the defensive line. Now, with this Eagles defense, Casino has mentioned it, 4 players with double-digit sack numbers. He's one of them. He had 11 sacks this year. Now, honestly, I wanted to go outside of the box a little, but on this Eagles defense, there's so many good players. You really can't, because no matter who you pick, it's kind of going to be an all-star. So, and as Smash Mouth once said, "Hey man, you're an all-star. Get your game on. Go play." Right? And that's what we want. That's what we want if you're an Eagles fan to happen. I think Hassan Reddick has a big game, and I think he needs to have a big game to kind of break this Chiefs offense, much like he did with the 49ers. Obviously, I don't want to see Patrick Mahomes get hurt or knocked out of the game. I didn't want to see Purdy get hurt or knocked out of the game because I knew the narrative would change. And we saw this entire week, I was going to do a big rant about it on this episode. I did it on last episode, but I was like, at this point, I don't even give a shit. It's just like every 49ers player has like this giant excuse as if the Eagles should have stopped playing the game when Purdy got knocked out, and then they could have just rescheduled it for another time. It's like, that's not how football works. I don't get what you're bitching about, but I digress. With Josh Sweat, it comes down to all the offensive focus on who to stop is going to be on Reddick, right? We saw what he did against the 49ers, and the Chiefs definitely don't want a repeat of that because it was hitting the quarterback. It was forcing the ball. It was forcing errant throws. It was a forced fumble and a fumble recovery, which wasn't called that. But again, it was a split second of, if he would have stayed up a little longer, him being the quarterback, Josh Johnson, would have stayed up a little longer, it would have been a fumble forced and fumble recovered, which he's done all season. So if they can somehow contain Reddick, it's going to come with that offensive line, right? Which is going to be Davis, which is going to be Hardgrave, which is going to be Cox, which is going to be Graham on one side, Hassan Reddick right behind him, and then on the other side, it's going to be Josh Sweat. So if Josh Sweat can get 2 sacks in this game, a bunch of quarterback hits or pressures, I don't see how the Chiefs can overcome that, because then they're going to have to focus on him. It opens it up for Reddick. They focus on those two. It opens it up for Cox and Hardgrave, and then Graham's right there. Like, I just feel like it's going to be a real tough day for this Kansas City offensive line, and more importantly, Mahomes. Casino, with your robot visor, your turn.
I do want to say that you did say Reddick
like
twice.
Reddick.
You said
Chronicles. Reddick. It's going to be, this Sunday, it's going to be the Chronicles of Reddick. It's going to be the Chronicles of Riddick. It's going to be all of it. Vin Diesel might be there. Who knows?
Anyway.
Who is your X factor for the Eagles offense, Casino?
I'm going to switch it up because I got slack for it yesterday. I'm going to go Quez Watkins.
Ooh. I did give you shit yesterday. So this is a better pick.
You did. I said Smith yesterday, but no, Quez Watkins. But kind of on the note of they know what they know what they're going to get out of the pressure when it comes to Brown and Smith. They know they have to cover them. I think Quez Watkins needs to really have a big game. He needs to be, especially if Hurts is not able to throw the ball as far as he is used to, you're going to need to have some check down guys. And I think Quez Watkins will be a great check down guy for him because you're going to get a lot of the double teams going on them. By the way, the wife just pulled in. I'm going to probably mute it so the dogs go crazy. I'm glad I went first then. I'm going Quez Watkins just because they need another good receiver if Hurts can't throw the ball downfield. Yeah.
Now, I was gonna be a dickhead and pick Devontae Smith because I
was gonna pick your guy from yesterday, but I didn't. So I'll let you still take him.
Well, actually, I'm changing it up as well because
God damn it, I would have said Sanders then, you son of a bitch.
Well, Sanders, Gainwell, Scott, I feel like they all need to have a big game, right? Because the best way to beat Patrick Mahomes is by keeping him off the field. If you don't have to worry about Patrick Mahomes, he can't beat you, right? So that's going to be one of the big factors is can this Eagles team not only sustain a running game, but keep it up the entire game where they're just churning off minutes on the clock. My pick, however, I do think this is going to be a big Devontae Smith game. I think he shows up big in big games. He has his entire life. I actually agreed with Casino's pick yesterday, but I do feel like this has to be and will be the Dallas Goedert game. Yeah, he was asked yesterday, how do you feel against going against, Kelsey? And he said he's the best tight end in the league. And I think this game is my chance to prove I'm right there with him, right? This year, he's been kind of plagued with injuries by that bullshit face mask in the Commanders game. But ever before then, and since he's came back, he's had big games. I think this is his big game to kind of take advantage of, right? I think the linebackers are going to be way too focused on trying to stop the RPO game, which opens up Goddard for big games. He's a matchup nightmare unless they put a corner on him. But against this Eagles offense, you can't. Because your other corners need to be focused on Brown, like Casino said, Watkins and Devontae Smith. So I think that this offense is geared to open up passing plays for Goddard for big games, right? For big gains, I'm sorry. So there's no way this isn't a big game for A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert or Quez Watkins. I think all that attention focused on other parts of the game, especially by stopping the run, is going to force this Chiefs defense to give up the game to one of those players. And I think the player they give it up to is Dallas Goedert, who has a big game on Sunday. So, Casino, now that we've done our X Factor players, there's only one thing to do before we end the podcast here, which is how do you see this game playing out? Who you picking, and just predict your score and how the game goes.
I'm picking Eagles 35 to the Chiefs 21. You heard it right here.
35-21, Eagles over Chiefs. I'm writing it down. I have been really thinking about this game. I think this could be a blowout for the Eagles. I don't see a scenario where the Chiefs win in a blowout. I see scenarios where the Chiefs win close games, right? Because they've been doing that all season. But in terms of blowouts, I think it is either a blowout on the Eagles side or there's no blowout. I just don't think the Chiefs have, as we said multiple times in this podcast, as complete a team as the Eagles do. Now, obviously, I'm an Eagles fan. I'm praying the Eagles win. I'm hoping the Eagles win. I will burst into tears in the bar right next to Casino if the Eagles do win. I am picking the Eagles to win, but I'm adjusting my score from what it was yesterday. I think they win 34-24. I think it's a 10-point game. I think it is close in the beginning of the game, but after halftime, I just think the Eagles pull away with it. That's my prediction, Casino. And as I said to you, if the Eagles win, 4 things will happen. I will buy a Jalen Hurts Super Bowl jersey. I will buy a Hassan Reddick Super Bowl jersey. I will cry in front of Casino, maybe on your shoulder. So, start doing the shoulder exercises now so they can be ready in 48 hours. And then I will also, my wife is also hearing this for the first time. I'm getting a tattoo on my body, Eagles logo with both dates they won the Super Bowl. Hopefully down the years, I'll add more and more dates of Super Bowls they won. But yeah, so I'm guaranteeing an Eagles 2 jersey purchases and a tattoo if they win. I'm not going to be one of those idiots that fucking gets the Super Bowl champion tattoo like 2 weeks before they even play the Super Bowl. I've never understood those. But Casino, anything else to say before we get out of here?
No.
Well, I think I speak for all Eagles fans where I say, fly, Eagles, fly. They don't like us. We don't care. And also, who really doesn't like us is San Francisco 49ers players. Have fun fucking watching the game at home because you're not playing in it, you fucking salty little bitches. My most hated team is now the 49ers with the Cowboys. Can't wait till we play again. And yeah, fly, Eagles, fly. We'll see you next episode when we talk about hopefully the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. Next episode will be entertaining in many ways. I'll either cry on the air out of happiness or sadness, but this has been the Only Sports Podcast.
So
I'm
you
Will.
guarantee to
That's
cry.
Casino.
Sounds good.
Guarantee to cry regardless. So, all right. Adios, Casino. We'll see you next episode.